On today's episode of Locked On Suns, how a familiar offensive wrinkle and an unexpected defensive wrinkle helped the Suns take care of business at home against the 76ers.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Dime Magazine, the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcasts, and the creator of the Locked On Suns Insider community, where I write, do videos, and more. We'll hear more about that as the show continues, but thank you for being here. Thank you for finding us wherever you find your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so just hit that follow or subscribe button. Get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer here on the show, and get locked onto the Phoenix Suns all season long. Today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 straight to your account if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. 115-102 is the final score. The Phoenix Suns taking care of business, notching win number 40. And as always, we're going to zoom in on our moment of the game to kick off the show, and it is the end of the third quarter for one very specific reason. The final 4 defensive possessions by the Suns. So that basically takes us to the 1 minute and 48 second mark. And it was all about Bradley Beal's defense. Not every night we're doing that topic. Not every night that we're highlighting Bradley Beal as a defensive player, but I think that's exactly why we need to in this game. Tyrese Maxey, the best player on the Sixers, while Joel Embiid continues to rehab the meniscus injury and surgery that he had, was 3 of 13 from the field for 6 points. Maxey is not always the most efficient with Embiid out, but still piles up points. And what the Suns went out and did in this game to ensure, or do their best to ensure that that did not happen, was to put Beal on him. And at the end of this third quarter, Beal, the first play was a block in transition, a rotation off of, kind of out of the middle of the lane to come take a driving Buddy Hield. They counted it as a block in the box score. You could call it a steal if you want. Swipes down at Buddy really before he can even get his shot off, and it's a turnover going the other direction. Next possession, Maxey tries to run a side pick and roll, basically his favorite set to operate in. Beal cuts off the drive. The Sixers have to reset, and it results in a miss by, I'm not even sure who, KJ Martin. Beal takes a transition 3, misses that, no big deal. Come down the other way once again. Tyrese Maxey comes off of a screen downhill in the middle of the floor. Beal slithers through, reaches around from behind, pokes it loose, steal going the other way. Eric Gordon, weird game for him, not what we're focusing on right now. Attacks a closeout on the other side, misses it. Philly pushes the pace going the other direction. And who else but Bradley Beal soars in to launch into the air and get a chase down block on, once again, Tyrese Maxey. Suns score on the other end, 24-point lead, capping off an awesome close to that quarter, an awesome quarter period, 30-19 for this favoring the Suns, and punctuating an awesome defensive night by Beal. All right. It's not that we've never seen this before, but why did we see it tonight, and why don't we see it more often? Again, Maxey was coming off of 3 straight 30-point games. Shot worse than 50% from the field in a couple of those, but the Sixers also won back-to-back heading into this game, largely because of Maxey. So Again, even without Embiid, this guy has been productive, and tonight he was not. But the bigger question than how they were able to even shut him down is, why did Bradley Beal get the matchup? And so I asked Frank Vogel about it post-game because he shouted out this exact stretch, which is already going to be my moment of the game, all right? But, of course, it helps when the coach hypes up the same thing. And he had praised these plays, but I asked him about why did Beal get this one? Why does Beal not get these matchups every night? And often it's Grayson Allen doing it. Vogel referenced how they put Beal onto Lillard at times down the stretch on Sunday. And we've all remember the Zion matchup that Beal was able to navigate in and perform pretty well in a couple months ago. So the bottom line, the basic gist of Vogel's answer is they also need quite a bit from Beal on the offensive end, right? I mean, he's been driving so much of their offense lately, literally driving. Talked about that on Wednesday's show with Stephen Perjone. If you missed that one, definitely check it out. So they can't always ask Beal to be the guy that dedicates himself, puts his energy into, in this case, a really quick, energetic, relentless, moving type of offensive option. And Vogel certainly has a point. Beal was decent as a passer tonight. He was able to break down the defense and dish it. But 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, no trips to the free throw line, 5 turnovers. So definitely not Beal's best offensive night, and those things are probably linked together. It is exhausting to do this. That's why most teams have specialists who tend to be their best defenders, and even guys who can do more on offense when they have to be more of a defensive specialist, their offense tends to decrease, right? Like think of Derek White or Drew Holiday in Boston or whatever you want to look at. I don't think it makes sense to do this every night. I don't think it makes sense to ask Beal to do this on a consistent basis, but it's not very far off from exactly the point that I made on Tuesday's episode about Devin Booker the Suns needing more from Book. And a lot of what I talked about was this exact type of thing. If Beal can do it, if Beal can be the guy to step up in certain matchups, in certain stretches of games at the point of attack in order to extinguish a fire of a player who has it going or try to disrupt a star player's rhythm like Maxey tonight, whatever it is, that starts to solve some of the Suns' problems. But again, if it's not reasonable to ask Beal to do this on a consistent basis or for full games over the course of maybe a playoff series, it's not a full solution. Still, it's awesome to see that he can do this because it was a huge doubt in everybody's mind when he came to Phoenix, and it was very clear that point of attack defense was going to be a hole this team had when they traded Mikal Bridges and didn't really replace him. People were skeptical, myself included. I talked about it back and forth, questioned it, wondered about it all off season if Beal could be part of the answer to that problem. And he clearly can be. They want to save it. They don't want to overdo it. They don't want to overtax Beal, who obviously has had injury concerns all season. But at the very least, put this in your back pocket, put a pin in it, and do not be surprised if we see more of this when the playoffs do get going. The Suns had an awful performance on Sunday. There's no way around that. I hate to harp on it, but it was just that ugly. Next up, I'll tell you why I liked how they responded, but that it is a very particular kind of response that we are coming to expect from this Suns team. Coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take that adventure to the next level just for you. Their 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything, and gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system, making the 2024 Rogue the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. In addition, the 2024 Nissan Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further with the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Today's show also brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing with America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You even can pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Keeping it rolling. I wanted to see tonight how the Suns responded. Of course we all did. I had it penciled in that this segment on this show was going to be about how that response looked before the game ever even tipped off. I'm driving to the arena and I'm like, that's what I want to focus on. And so I did. And I don't think it was flawless tonight. First quarter was ugly. Grayson Allen said post-game that I think the group felt like the shots they were generating were good and they just missed them. And obviously they kind of put their heads down and kept at it and put their heads down in a good way. I guess you could say hung their heads would be the bad version. And score 39 in the second in order to get to 60 in the first half, and away they went. But even as things continued, right? 23 turnovers in this game. They allowed a ton of offensive rebounds in the first quarter, and luckily they were able to match that. Book and Nurk get 5 apiece, almost all of those coming in the first quarter for those two also, so that helps. They get bailed out by an awful free throw shooting night by the Sixers, but the Sixers more than double them up in attempts from the line. So this was not a game where everything went their way. The fourth quarter got a little shaky, although they had such a big lead that it didn't end up mattering. So you win by 13. You have a 20-plus point lead. You squelch out the opposing team's best player and generally take care of business. Obviously, that is the type of response, big picture, that you wanted to see. Vogel said, the effort on three-point contests was better. The defensive, he has a word for it that he always uses, disposition. The defensive disposition was where he wanted it. Okay, check, check, check. All the boxes down the list. But temperamentally, I guess we could even use disposition, big picture, not just on defense, as Vogel likes to say. Did it snap into place? Did it feel like the best moments that this season has given us? No. It didn't. There were still stretches of the game where Durant didn't seem to get in rhythm. Some of that was the physicality from Philly. The guy got 0 free throw attempts despite like 3 or 4 different occasions where he and or Vogel were blowing up at the refs. Vogel talked about that post-game. So that didn't help, but that trend did not fully fix itself here. At the same time, Book did a good job taking what the defense was giving, but I wouldn't say this was an ace offensive performance from the big three by any means. I guess that's a, piggyback off of the Durant thing. So there were some of those same problems, despite overall a lot of the things feeling better. But again, when we're talking about the disposition, the temperament of this team, I would say the best vibes we had tonight were during that second quarter, which was another candidate to do as the moment of the game in my eyes. when Bol Bol had it going, when the bench unit, well, it really wasn't even a bench unit. It was Bol in place of Beal with the starters, and then Bol in for Beal and O'Neal in for Durant. Those were the two half and half lineups that really initiated that run. But it felt a little shaky still, I think you would have to admit. And I guess the reason, we've seen this before, right? The reason I bring it up is because it's familiar now. These are we good types of games where the, 2023-2024 Phoenix Suns buzzword of the season, body language, the body language can feel a little bit like it's asking that question. Are we good here? Is everything all right? Is this going to go sideways? This game was not fully free of that. And that's fine, is the other thing. So it was there. It's often there. But I don't have a problem with it. That temperament, that body language. At the end of the day, I really don't, The Nuggets game recently, the Lakers win at home on that Sunday afternoon. We know what it can feel like when this team is rolling. And again, it was not like that today. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with the idea that this team gets a little shaken when it screws up, when it lays an egg. It would be nice to be a team that, it would be nice if this was a team that could just snap its fingers and will itself into carefree competitive energy after a dud. But if the way they do respond is some shaky energy and still winning by double digits, that's pretty good too, because it indicates that they care. They realize how bad it was on Sunday, and yeah, maybe they're overthinking it. Maybe they're overemphasizing certain things. They talked about in this game, especially early, that they were overreacting to pump fakes because they were so jittery about the three-point stuff. I don't mind that. And if you're measuring the response from an emotional perspective and an execution perspective, I think there's a lot worse that you could do than a B+, where the realization, the awareness is obvious. Gotta talk about Grayson Allen. How does this keep happening? As well as the bench, which right after a game where Vogel didn't trust any of them, showed up in a massive way. So we'll get to both of those coming up. First, today's show brought to you by Betterhelp. Betterhelp is making therapy easier, more accessible, more flexible, just for you. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off of our chests. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased about your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. It's not as serious as maybe other issues may be, but you might even be thinking about the same exact thing this week. And here's what it is. I don't understand Eric Gordon. I don't understand Eric Gordon. I don't know how to analyze him. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if the injuries are more real than we realize. I don't know if it's just a fit thing. But even the inconsistency he had down the stretch for the Clippers last season is not the same as 19 minutes, 0 of 2 from the field. It makes absolutely no sense. Therapy can be different for everybody. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team and their sixth man, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. It does not have to be trauma or anything insane or extreme. Therapy can just give you an outlet to speak to somebody unbiased about your life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month and try it out for yourself. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Closing out the show. Bench mob vibe check. So I tweeted this out in the second quarter that Drew Eubanks and Bol Bol had both played more minutes already in this game than they did all of the Bucks game. I don't know what on earth happened against Milwaukee, and I'm done talking about it, I promise. But tonight was an illustration of why you probably just need to ride the bench unit that you have, right? Because 0 of 2, like I just mentioned in the ad read from Gordon, just nothing night. Too many of those this year, but not unexpected at this point. Eubanks doing Eubanks things. Just chicken with his head off, defensive decision making at times, and whatever, less than 50% from the field despite being, only taking shots at the rim. Some scary turnovers and near turnovers by Bol. He got tallied for 2. I would say if he had ended the game with 5, it wouldn't have surprised me. And Royce O'Neal, I think, didn't necessarily have a place to fit in, given that this was a game where Nurkic could play quite a bit and Bol had it going and everything else. And yet, Royce finishes with 13 and 4. Bol finishes with 10 and 3. And all 4 of those bench players have a positive plus-minus in the box score. In addition, yes, the last 2 minutes, the white flag lineup comes out. Isaiah Thomas makes his debut. But even without that, you're still looking at Grayson Allen and Devin Booker being in the mid-30s and Durant and Beal only having to go to 36 and 37. So it helps there to actually just trust your bench. Now, obviously, I'm not being ridiculous and saying play them even if it is a disaster. But frankly, I've made this case plenty of times on the podcast. Outside of Eubanks, I don't think any of the bench is really a disaster a lot of the time. Gordon just kind of disappears. O'Neal, maybe he'll miss his threes, but he's a high IQ guy and he plays with effort. Bol, he's really not hurting you that much anymore. So this feels like the sweet spot. 10 to 15 minutes for Eubanks and Bol, 15 to 20, maybe more for O'Neal, 15 to 20 for Gordon, and there's your rotation. The last thing on the bench mob vibe check here is that Thad Young got blocked in this game on what could have been a dunk, and, it's a little funny, but it's also like maybe a reminder of the athletic limitations of a guy who is 35 and has been in the league as long as just about anybody. Okay, so he was on the 76ers before Sam Hinkie took over. That's what you need to know. So just putting that out there. Last but not least, box score oddity is Grayson Allen's three-point shooting. 9 of 15 from deep. Again, 9 threes made. At least this time he had that last one where he had a really good chance of seeing that go in and getting to 10. But he also had that additional attempt to prevent him from finishing with an identical stat line of 9 for 14, which he has done 3 other times already this season, that exact shooting ratio from three-point land, so avoids that as well. But really, look, this is not a surprise anymore. The 5 assists is not really a surprise anymore. This guy is consistently aggressive and having one of the best shooting seasons anybody will ever have. I mean, that's not hyperbole. This performance put him back over 48% from deep, and it's not as if he is just standing in the corner making easy open ones. He is chucking and still seeing almost half of them go in. Unbelievable. The question I really have is, like, it's obvious, we do this kind of every time, of the why do they keep leaving him open? And the answer is always, well, it's a pick your poison situation. And if Nurkic is doing his thing, setting good screens, making plays on the roll, whatever, and the big three are doing their thing, Allen's the natural guy that's going to end up with those open looks. And yes, fair, not going to argue that. But the big three did not have it rolling today, Beal in particular. So to me, it's interesting, and I guess just sort of fast forwarding to the playoffs as, again, we kind of think about what the situation might be in these game plans from opposing teams. I wonder if, especially given that Beal is hesitant when it comes to shooting threes, and despite some awesome performances lately driving to the basket, is still a guy with, injury-prone history recently, and not exactly like, this isn't Ja Morant out there in terms of just the fearless soaring into the basket. Maybe we might see, Grayson Allen has earned the idea that we might see teams actually play off Beal if he is a spacer in order to stay home on Grayson and just see what happens. The thing is, though, that only works for so long, because if you're going to stay home on Grayson, well, the Suns can rearrange their spacing and say, okay, Beal's going to be on the weak side now, and if you're going to play off of that, then he's going to get an open corner three, and we'll put Grayson on the strong side if you're going to stay on him anyway. And, the reality is, at the end of the day, the Suns still have probably, you would say, the starting lineup with the best overall shooting ability in the league outside of Boston. So no matter who they're playing off of or whatever, there really is no good answer. It's just crazy to see these nights where Allen is able to get up 15 good-looking threes, make more than half of them, and the defense still makes the same decision. I don't know. It does not compute to me. Don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns Insiders. I'll be doing a watch back of the second quarter when those bench units were really going. I'll have that ready for the Locked On Suns Insider subscribers on Thursday. So sign up at the link in the show description below, or visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSuns to sign up. Get all of that delivered straight to your phone. Game day observations, Suns news and rumors, and more. Subscribe to this show to get another recap episode after Thursday night's game against the Atlanta Hawks. Enjoy that game, and I'll talk to you then.